Welcome to The Pause.
Yeah, glad you're here.
Today we're doing a deep dive into a text called Echoes of the Mind. And it has this really unsettling premise.
It does. It starts right off by saying, you probably believe your thoughts are yours,
Right.
but what if they aren't?
So if you are listening to this right now, just take a second to pay attention to the voice in your head evaluating what we're saying.
That internal monologue.
Exactly. It feels incredibly intimate, doesn't it? It has your specific tone. It guards your secrets.
It feels like a private fortress
Yeah.
where you are the sole architect.
Hmm.
We all operate under this assumption that the mind is an impenetrable sanctuary.
We do. But Echoes of the Mind disrupts that comfort zone immediately.
hmm
It examines just how permeable our consciousness actually is. It asks a deceptively simple question: where do our thoughts actually originate?
Right, because the argument isn't just that we're influenced by our environment. I mean, that's a given for anyone paying attention. The text argues that the very substance, the syntax, and the emotional posture of our internal monologue is imported.
Imported, I love that word for this, because the familiarity of that inner voice it's exactly what makes the illusion of absolute ownership so convincing.
Exactly. We assume that because the voice sounds like us, the ideas it generates must belong to us.
But the text breaks down these unseen architects of our minds. It categorizes them into things we hear, things we read, and conversations we've had.
Let's look at that first one. Things we hear.
Yeah.
Because the text bypasses the obvious stuff. It's not talking about taking notes during a profound lecture.
No, it focuses entirely on the stealth of ambient noise. It treats auditory influence almost like localized weather systems we walk through.
That's a great way to put it. It's
Yeah.
not about overhearing a fact. It's
Yeah.
about absorbing the cadence and the emotional frequency of your environment.
Right. Think about being in a busy coffee shop. You're just sitting there, not even trying to eavesdrop, but there are two people at the next table, and they have this really cynical, sharp tone. They're just bickering.
And you barely register it consciously.
You don't care what they're saying, but an hour later, you're at work, and you find yourself applying that exact same cynical framework to a problem you're trying to solve.
The text frames that as perspectives catching a ride in the subconscious.
Yeah.
Because we are highly social creatures, right?
Yeah.
We are calibrated to mirror the group.
We are.
So when we're immersed in a sea of audio, whether it's the pacing of a podcast host, the subtle anxiety of a background news anchor, or a really optimistic coworker, we don't just process the sound.
We inherit the underlying temperament. We adopt the tempo.
Exactly. But you might ask, and the text addresses this, what about our defense mechanisms?
Right, because if someone is screaming in panic on the street, I don't automatically inherit their panic.
No, your internal voice usually reacts with judgment, or you create distance.
My mind builds a wall. So, are we just indiscriminate sponges?
Well, the text argues that even when your internal voice reacts with judgment, the subject of your thought has still been dictated by that external event.
Oh, wow.
Your mind built a wall, sure, but the screaming person on the street determined exactly where that wall was built.
And what materials I used to construct it.
Exactly. Your attention was hijacked. And this concept of hijacking becomes so much more explicit when the author transitions from things we hear to things we read.
This distinction is fascinating because when I listen to someone speak, I am processing their voice. But silent reading requires a totally different cognitive mechanism.
It does.
When you read a book, an article, or just scroll through social media feed, you are literally lending your own internal voice to the author.
You are performing their words inside your own head.
It's a profound vulnerability.
It really is, because reading bypasses a layer of auditory defense. The voice articulating the foreign idea is your own.
Right.
And in the modern era, the sheer volume of text we consume is just historically unprecedented. We are constantly renting out our internal monologue.
Every single day, to thousands of disparate voices and opinions.
And the lines blur so rapidly between the text on a screen and the thoughts generating from within.
So as a listener, think about this for a second. Have you ever read a really persuasive, nuanced opinion piece on a topic you previously didn't care about at all?
Like a complex piece of legislation or something.
Yeah. And in the moment, you're just reading. But 3 days later, someone brings it up at dinner.
And suddenly you have a very specific, articulate opinion.
Exactly. You present it as your own brilliant deduction. You completely forget that you're just replaying a script you read earlier in the week.
Which brings us to the mechanics of how that forgetting actually happens, how beliefs form.
The alchemy of internalization.
The text introduces this concept of unconscious absorption. It's a process we might call the stripping of the origin tag.
Stripping the origin tag.
Yeah. The human brain is efficient, but it has limited capacity for cognitive load. It literally cannot store the metadata for every single idea we encounter.
Who wrote it, what website it was on, what time of day we read it.
It discards all that context to save space.
It's the equivalent of downloading a complex software file to your computer, immediately deleting the source URL, and then convincing yourself a few days later that you wrote the code from scratch.
That is a perfect analogy. The payload remains, but the origin tag falls off.
And it's so stealthy. We don't consciously sit down with a clipboard and evaluate every passing headline to decide if it gets to be a core belief.
No, if an idea resonates, even on a microscopic level, it just integrates into our system.
Woven right into the tapestry of the inner voice.
Which makes the third unseen architect the text mentions, conversations we've had, particularly potent.
Yeah, because unlike reading or passive listening, a conversation requires active participation.
It's an exchange of worldview architecture.
But I wonder about conflict. If I spend an hour fiercely debating a friend, actively rejecting their worldview, my internal voice is distinctly mine in that moment, right? I am pushing back.
You think that proves cognitive independence.
Surely it does.
But echoes of the mind complicates that. Even in a fierce debate, the terms of the engagement are set by the friction between you and the other person.
Ah, I'm reacting to their framework.
Exactly. If they hadn't presented their specific argument, your specific counter-argument would never have materialized in your mind.
That's entirely fair.
Furthermore, the text observes how the boundaries of these interactions just dissolve over time. Think about a mentor who calmed you down during a crisis 5 years ago.
Oh, I see the progression here. The external comfort morphs into an internal coping mechanism.
Yes, the exact words they use to soothe you slowly become the exact logic you use to soothe yourself today.
And I don't attribute the wisdom to them anymore. I just assume I developed a healthy, resilient perspective. The voice providing the comfort feels totally native.
Over time, those conversational influences don't just inform the voice in your mind. They literally become it.
The amalgamation of the authors you've read, the family who raised you, the friends you've argued with, and the cultural noise you walk through.
It all coalesces into a single unified narrator.
So the question is, how many of your thoughts began with you?
It's the ultimate originality paradox.
If we strip away every article we've absorbed, every conversation that shaped our boundaries, and every ambient attitude we've caught, like a cult, what is actually left?
Is there a pure, unadulterated thought that spontaneously generates from absolute zero?
It really forces us to confront the mystery of consciousness. Can original thought truly exist? The very language we used to think was invented by ancestors will never know.
The vocabulary, the grammatical structures, the metaphors, the entire framework of our thinking is inherited.
But let's challenge the text definition of originality for a moment.
Okay.
Even if all the inputs are external, the synthesis has to count for something, doesn't it?
Synthesis argument.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I might take an economic theory I read, combine it with a strange interaction I had at the grocery store, and filter both through my own biological temperament. That specific cocktail, that unique collision of inputs, has never existed before. If a DJ creates a totally new track out of sampled audio, we still recognize the DJ as an artist.
It's a compelling argument. And the text does acknowledge that our minds are unique, localized environments.
Right.
However, it pushes us to consider if even our method of synthesizing is learned.
What do you mean?
Are the connections you make between the economic theory and the grocery store interaction truly novel? Or are you just following cognitive pathways and narrative structures laid down by the media you consume and the education you received?
Oh, wow. So the DJ might be making a new track, but they're using a culturally inherited idea of what music is supposed to sound like.
Exactly. It implies the lines between self and society are so profoundly blurred that there is no clear border where the world ends and the self begins.
Which fundamentally threatens our modern obsession with authenticity. We place enormous cultural value on finding our own voice, speaking our truth.
But if our voice is just a well-curated tapestry of external influences, the concept of a singular authentic self starts to look like a comforting fiction.
Or perhaps our definition of authenticity is just flawed.
How so?
We tend to view authenticity as discovering a thought purely untainted by the outside world. But maybe authenticity isn't about conjuring something from nothing.
Right. Maybe it's just the honest observation of the thoughts that are present.
Recognizing ourselves as a collection of echoes doesn't diminish the human experience. It actually highlights this deep, inescapable interconnectedness.
The sanctuary of the mind isn't a lonely tower. It's a bustling public square.
And realizing that can actually be quite liberating.
It removes the pressure to constantly generate 100% original material.
We are essentially highly advanced curators. We don't paint all the art in the gallery, but we do get to decide where the paintings hang.
I love that. We can choose which external ideas we want to amplify in our inner monologue and which inherited anxieties we want to let fade into the background.
And that curatorial role changes how we interact with our environment.
Completely. When you understand that every conversation is potentially planting a seed in someone else's inner monologue, the weight of your words increases.
And when you recognize that the text you scroll through tonight will literally become the voice narrating your commute tomorrow morning,
You naturally become much more selective about your inputs.
it fosters a profound sense of empathy and a heightened responsibility for our cognitive diet.
So as you move through your day today, just pay attention to the narrator in your head. Listen a little closer to the syntax it uses.
Notice the faint accents of the authors you admire, the subtle anxieties of the culture you belong to, the lingering logic of the people you've loved.
Echoes of the Mind intentionally leaves us without a definitive conclusion. The goal isn't to draw a hard mathematical line and declare a certain percentage of your mind belongs to you, while the rest belongs to society.
The question of where your thoughts begin is simply a lens.
It's an invitation to view your own consciousness with more wonder,
To notice the echoes without needing to silence them.
an invitation to sit in the ambiguity of the mind.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. If our inner voice is essentially a living library of everything we've ever absorbed, what happens to our sense of self in a modern world where the inputs simply never cease?
It's a critical question.
If you are constantly consuming audio, text, and conversation, and you never experience true prolonged silence, do you ever actually get to meet the curator of the library?
Something to keep in mind as you navigate the noise of your day.
Before we go, let's do one last thing. Take a big breath in with us. Count to 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
And slowly sigh it out.
Ah.
You've been listening to The Pause, and we'll be back at 8 a.m. tomorrow.